All right. Well, I'm Ernest Fruehauf. My wife Ursula and I moved here to Weinberg Community residence just about 4 years ago. And we've gotten pretty well assimilated in the facility. Of course, life today is a little different from what it was before the endemic, but we can talk about some of the things we did when we had a normal existence over here like everybody else. Um, I might mention that because of my own background, I was born in Germany in 1929 and spent a dozen years under the Hitler regime. And we were fortunate enough, my parents, brother, sister, and I, to escape to the United States in 1941. So among other things, certainly Judaism has been a big part of me ever since I was a youngster. And I've continued the tradition and as the years went by, I like Jewish ritual, I like ritual objects. So over the years, we've accumulated all kinds of things, and we've even started, sometimes to make things on our own. But one of the projects I first of all want to talk about is what do we do here? Well, we have a number of seniors who enjoy working with little children, usually 4-year-olds, that when things were more open before the endemic, would come over here a couple of times, maybe a month, and they would come in to, have some refreshments and sing songs, and they enjoyed meeting old people like me and ask questions and play games and learn about things. So I soon found out, well, what I remember from my own childhood, what gets little children interested. So I over the years, have collected quite a few sort of unusual dreidels for Chanukah. Of course, there are people who collect them by the dozens. I don't have that many. I just picked up a few to show the variety of these things. And obviously, as you can imagine, children really get caught by some that are different. Most dreidels look like this. They have a gimel, hey, shin, and vav, which stand, or nun, which stand for the 4 different prizes you can have if you get one at all. It stands for the Hebrew expression Nes Gadol Haya Sham, a great miracle happened there. In Israel, instead of a shin, they have a peh, because they say a great miracle happened here, po. So anyway, as you know, if you play a dreidel and it spins, it falls on one of 4 sides. If everybody plays, let's say, for pennies, let's say you have a dozen children sitting around the table, they all put in a penny. And if the first person spins and the dreidel learns on the gimel, that means gimel stands for, in German, ganz. It's originally a German game, which means the whole thing. So he gets all the pennies. If you get a hey that stays, as it turns out in English, halb, or in Yiddish, in German it's halb, in English it's half. So you get half the pennies. If you're unfortunate enough to have the dreidel land on a shin, then you have to put a penny in. Or if you get a nun, the nothing, then you don't do anything. You just basically lose your turn. The next person takes over. So anyhow, these dreidels have different ways of showing the four symbols: the gimel, the hey, the shin, and the nun. So, for example, this is the typical dreidel. This happens to be one made of glass, and it has little fine silver decorations on it, which are scenes from Israel. So you have the gate to Damascus. You have the dome of the rock on the Temple Mount. You have King David's tower, and you have the dome. The building, the dome, the detail of the dome of the rock, which was at one time was part of the middle of the great temple of King Solomon, and today is a Muslim monument. Anyway, so that's shown on this particular dreidel. Then if you want to make a really simple one, you can buy a little spinning top like this, which I did one year. And I put the Hebrew letters on the four sides, so you can have a very simple dreidel and just spin this little wheel and see where it drops. And something similar was available about in Israel, which is beautifully colored and has the little gold letters and then different Jewish symbols on it, so that you can turn this, and depending on where it lands, that tells you which letter you happen to draw. This one here is the one that gets little children really excited, because we bought this one time, quite by coincidence. We saw it going by a shop in Tel Aviv, and this little thing is in the form of a carousel. And it's easy to spin, and you think you're going to a carnival, and the kids really love this because it has 4 pomegranates on it, and on each pomegranate are, again here, the four letters, so you can tell which one, who gets the prize, or whether you get a prize or not. And how do you tell that? Well, if you notice, there's a little blue stone, a little dot there. So whichever one is closest to whichever pomegranate is closest to the dot, that tells you who wins. The most unusual one I have was made in the former Soviet Union, Russia, and it was given to a friend of mine. He brought this back from the Soviet Union. And what makes it interesting is that it has on it some of the leaders of the Soviet Union. So it has, first of all, Lenin, who was one of the founders of the Bolshevik system, communist system. Then you have Joseph Stalin, who was the dictator of the Soviet Union for years after World War II. Then you have Khrushchev, who took over sometime after Stalin passed away. And then most recently, the one who really became the leader in the fall of the Soviet Union. He was a friend of President Ronald Reagan, that's Gorbachev. So he is on this particular dreidel also, and they each have a name, which the letters of which are on the top of the dreidel. And so depending on where this thing falls, that tells you, whether you have the Aleph, I'm sorry, I keep saying Aleph. You get the Gimel, the Hey, the Shin, or the Vav. So that's kind of an unusual dreidel. Let's see, the other thing I want to mention that I find, children be interested in is the Chanukah. Most of us see a Chanukah as a kind of a lamp, which has 8 candle holders, and the 9th one for the shamash, the servant that you use to light the candles. But in Israel one time, we used to go there quite often years ago. I found one of these in a shop where they sold products made of silver, and this is a silver train. And you can imagine children going for this silver train, and you see you have 4 candles on each of the cars, on each of the 2 cars, 8, and then you have the engine. It has a specialist, a servant, so the shamash, as it's called in Hebrew, the shamash, his head candle is here in the tray, in the engine. To be honest, I don't want wax to mess up this poor little train, so it's more of a beautiful ritual object that I keep in a cupboard rather than actually using it for lighting. Actually, the candles would be so close together here that the wax would probably melt, and the candles would melt before they might burn up. I don't know. I've never really lit it, but it's again for little children who are 4 years old. They love this kind of stuff, and it gives them a relationship to the holiday and how you can celebrate it. So we found that very interesting. The other thing I wanted to talk about is what else something we do here in terms of actual creation is until this pandemic, we had an art class here, a creative art class that met once or twice a week. My wife was a member of the group. I stopped in a couple of times, and you could do all kinds of things. The person in charge would let you make paintings, drawings, and they also did work from clay, so that you could create all sorts of things. Now, my wife really took a liking to it, and she made all kinds of interesting clay products, which were painted after they were formed, and then put in a furnace, in a kiln, where the clay was dried. And so she would make things like this. She made quite a few of them. She must have had at least a dozen or more. But every time I said, oh, that's beautiful, let's keep it, she'd find somebody she would give it to. Somebody would see it and say, oh, is that beautiful, Ursula? Ursula would say, here, take it. So the only thing that's left that she decided one day, okay, I'll give you something. So I said, don't you dare give this away, because it's the last thing you've got. So this is a little tray that she made, and she made all kinds of little cups and saucers and you know, name it. And people would come to the apartment, or sometimes we'd have, days when people could visit here, they would see some of this and say, oh, where'd you get this from? They could see it was something that obviously was homemade, and she was more than happy to give it away. One of the things I did, I decided to go step by there one time, and it was kind of a fast thing. I wasn't going to spend a lot of time doing it, but I decided, what the heck, I've never made a Sabbath candle holder. So I just took some clay and nonchalantly said, now what could I do with it? So I made this rather heavy base tree. It's this three-pronged tree that the branches are gone. But I cut some lines into this to make it look like it's a tree. And I set it up so that you could put a Shabbat candle in each of these three holders. Then I made a base for it, and we painted it. And this was just a few hours of work. So there are a lot of things you can do here if you'd like to do these sort of things. You want to keep busy and do things other than playing cards or reading or just sitting around in the sun looking at things. So this is something that we did when the art shop was in operation. In terms of what you can do with clay, I once got one of my daughters bought me a ticket to I think it was a Lily craft shop somewhere in Chicago near North, and you could go there and you could make something. They would help you out. So I decided, what the heck, I'm going to make my own Chanukah. Of course, this took more than a couple of hours. So I decided to make a Chanukah in the shape of, let's say, a part of the Jerusalem wall, where the candles, four on each side of the wall. I'm sure you can get a picture of this. And then I put a couple of gates in here, and in some toy shop, I found a couple of camels that I could put into the gates here. And I found some little birds and little decorations, which I glued on. So there are two little birds sitting up on top to make it look like it was the real thing. I've used it once. I'm a little afraid of having to worry about all the wax melting maybe and running off on this thing. So it's more of a toy and a decoration for Hanukkah than anything else. And like this silver Chanukah, which I bought in Israel, it's just a beautiful ritual decoration, which I don't necessarily use, although it could obviously be used for Hanukkah. So those are some of the things that we do here, and it's all a matter of what you want to participate in. And I know that the art class, and I remember in months past, would pick up people, new members, or even old ones began to think, hey, maybe there's something I can do. I've got some artistic talents, and you'd be surprised at some of the nice things that they do, that they've done there. They've had exhibits here already on the walls of the hallway going from Gitwitz Weinberg to the Friends Center, and they've had whole exhibits of things. I think my wife participated, as I said, in that also in different ways. She made paintings. She converted she made a simulation of a painting by using spun wool, and she would try to copy the painting. So there are all kinds of things that you can really do here besides playing cards, bridge, reading papers, of course, the usual thing, we had classes, which I wasn't planning to talk about, but we had rabbis coming in here periodically. We have people coming in regularly who lead discussions. Okay, so Kraft would come in every Monday and spend about an hour and a half there discussing with people, and we used to get pretty good crowds, 20 people or more, discussing new events and questions of interest to the Jewish community. And that was a well-attended program. So that, you know, there's no limit. If somebody comes in here and has some great idea, you can go with it and it'll probably fly. So anyway, that's a little bit of what I wanted to talk about of some of the things that we do here.